Association awards for sports coverage and award-winning sports journalism. Here is Ryan Tutel and Colter Nuanez.
Hello, Montana. The NBA Finals, Game 3, is here. Some changes to some dimensions on the men's Division I college basketball floor, and we take your calls all day long. It is Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, and across the state of Montana on SWX Montana Television. Great to be with all of you out there. Also on the YouTube channel, Howdy Doody YouTube, Tutel Nuanez. Go check it out there. You can watch us, well, wherever you are pretty much on Earth. Maybe the moon. Do you think they can watch us on the moon, Colter? Wouldn't that be something, huh?
Does the moon exist? Have we ever actually been to the moon?
If anything exists, the moon exists, yes. And I will say yes. I'm not going to jump into your, I can't sleep on my pillow. Oh, we've never been to the moon. Don't start with me. We're 30 seconds into
I can't sleep, period, anymore. I don't know what happened to me.
We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com. There you can listen to the stream also, no matter where you are. Very easy. Maybe it's easier, at your work, that last hour of the day. You want to tune in. You don't have a radio. It's fine. Check it out, 1029ESPN.com. The stream brought to us by Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. You can also pick up your phone and call us, 329-1899. The phone number, 329-1899, area code 406. You do that. And you get into us, all guests join us via the Raggich Brothers RV phone line. You're going to want that number today. We're giving away wings today. We got some trivia for you. And also, we're going to have the trivia folks give us a story about Dad. We are giving away at the end of the week a stay-and-play getaway at the Sacagawea Hotel. They're in Three Forks, a couple of rounds of golf as well. Overnighter for two. What a nice getaway for a Father's Day present. Give us your best story about Dad when you call in for the wings, and you will be registered to try and win that package. So there you go. We'll be doing that all day long. Quick look at what we got in the show. We're going to talk a bit about the NBA Finals. Game 3 tonight. We've been talking about this. Still no update on Klay Thompson, so we will get into some of that in the minutia of the game and also the transfer of venue back to Oakland tonight. We will get into the three-point line, moving back to the international distance in Division I college basketball starting next season. Moving back over a foot, almost like a 1 foot 4 3/4 inches. If you want to know exactly how much further back, it's 22 feet and 1 3/4 inches is how far the international three-point line is. So they just keep moving this thing back, and I'm interested to know what you think, Colter, about the impact that this will have, not so much on this season, but this continual expanse that we're having in basketball because of just the dominance of shooters as they're coming to be across the landscape of basketball. In the next hour, we'll get into some Montana roster stuff. Some guys coming in, some guys not on the roster anymore. So Colter's going to apprise us of the ever-shifting landscape of college football's roster, specifically today with the University of Montana. And Austin Seferian-Jenkins, I don't know if we'll get to this. I just thought it's just remarkable that he signed on for like $800,000 with the Patriots, got cut first day. So I don't know. It's just I just found it. I don't know. It's a thing. So we'll see what we get into. There you go. That's what we got going.
Do you remember how big of a recruit Austin Seferian-Jenkins was?
Mighty.
This is why sometimes though, like the hype on a hyper local level, when it's attached to a giant metropolitan area like Seattle that is largely isolated. I mean, let's be honest. Seattle is a huge city that is in a region of the country with no huge cities. And so the Seattle hype machine has often been one that hasn't necessarily matriculated into the national consciousness, but when you live in the area, it's as profound as ever. I mean, from Austin Seferian-Jenkins to Kason Williams to who was the quarterback?
Jake Heaps.
Jake Heaps. I mean, these guys, if you were living in that area, if you were living in the true Pacific Northwest, which a lot of people call Missoula that, but it's not quite. Yeah. This is the Rocky Mountain West. If you're living from say, Coeur d'Alene or even Spokane, West, the hype for these guys was just insane. You would have thought that Casey Williams could have got drafted number 1 in the NFL out of high school.
Max Brown.
Max Brown was another one. Yep.
But here's the thing between those 3 guys in ASJ. Austin Ferry-Jenkins was not a good. He was a great college tight end.
He was great. He was better than those other guys were in college.
He was a second-round pick, 38th pick overall in the NFL draft.
Yeah.
So he met the hype at the college level. And frankly, I'm not so sure it's the football is the issue with Austin Ferry-Jenkins. Was it in New York or was it in Tampa that he had the one good season?
He had a pretty good season.
You know, but in any case.
It's also what is success, right? Like, because Austin Ferry-Jenkins is still in the NFL. He's been in the NFL for.
The question is he, right? 2014 draft pick. We're now going into the 2019 season. You know, he never earned a first big contract. I mean, he's just finished a rookie deal, got one $10 million deal, which was cut. Well, I think it was just a year long after. I'm going to stop there. Okay.
His best season was with the Jets.
Clear,
he had 50 catches for 357 yards and 3 touchdowns. 2017 for the New York Jets. Other than that, he's had no more than 21 catches in a season.
Tommy, how we doing back there today? You all right, bud?
Compared to what?
Maybe compared to yesterday? Have things gotten better since yesterday?
Definitely better than yesterday.
Okay.
I mean, who are you kidding, Tommy? Today was the greatest day of Tommy's life. Me and Tommy went on the trail together.
What?
That was a lot of fun.
It was great.
You and Tommy were on the trail today?
We were. Lunchbox.
With Alanya?
With Alanya.
We got to pick out some fun songs and everything,
It's
man.
the greatest day of my life.
Is that your trail debut, Coulter?
It is my trail debut.
Wow. Look at you, diversifying the portfolio.
Yep.
Impressive.
It's like our esteemed leader just said, it's because it's in my blood. Because, again, like you guys refuse to believe, my family invented the jukebox.
Where
I mean, all right.
Also, Tommy, I had a great epiphany last night.
I don't even know that I care to hear it right now.
No, you have to hear it, Tommy. I had a great epiphany last night.
Okay.
This will be good.
All right. I'm listening.
I watched. First of all, have you watched My Next Guest Needs No Introduction? The new David Letterman Netflix uncut talk show?
Yes.
I have not.
I watched the first 2 episodes of this newest season last night.
You did?
Yep.
With who?
Kanye West
And Ellen DeGeneres. They were great, right?
Great.
How good is the Ellen DeGeneres one?
Oh, first of all, I thought Ellen's was outstanding. Not surprisingly, not surprising that it was good. I thought it was very poignant, which I had not necessarily anticipated, and I thought that was just very well done in the main. I thought the Kanye West one, I just left more muddled about Kanye West than I entered it with Kanye West. I enjoyed it. I thought it was good, but I did not receive anything like the clarity that I thought that I might get. You know, sometimes I've never heard an extended interview with Kanye West. Never. I don't know that he does very many of them, but in any case, you know, you hear these snippets and sound bites and whatever, and that's water off a duck's back to me. I mean, I don't put anything into any of that because who in the world knows what's going on?
Well, especially with a guy like Kanye, because when you're only reading the snippet of what he said,
right.
I mean, let's be honest. He's one of the most famous people in the world, but the media is trying to make him look crazy. He is, in fact, crazy. And he does, in fact, talk extensively about his battles with mental illness in this interview.
Right. He does. Yes, he does. And I thought
But when you hear him extrapolate, you can see like his perspective so much better than just like the Twitter quote of what crazy thing Kanye said today, you know? But I thought the Kanye West one was just enthralling.
Now, wait. Okay. No, go ahead.
Because first of all, Kanye West was very brave in the way that he talked about his own mental illness and struggle. But you could also see it on full display. Because just in the scope of this 55-minute TV show, he went from incredibly shy and like almost hesitant to say anything to almost manic in the way that he was speaking and prophesizing and talking and controlling the show. And it was so interesting because he talked about like when he gets ramped up, what happens, you know, the mind purge,
right?
But also the paranoia that's associated with it and just a bunch of different factors. And I just thought it was so interesting. But then they go to the end part where he's having like his version of church.
Yeah.
And he's kind of like freestyling, but then also they have like the gospel people singing.
Yeah,
and
choir.
you can just truly see the genius that lies within him. And I think that's why he's such a tortured person, because I do think that it's a combination of brain chemistry and also fame that has gotten him to this point, because he's gotten exponentially more what people would say is quote unquote crazy, the more famous he's gotten. I think that comes with the territory as far as the eyes that are upon you. But I just thought that I was enraptured by it. I thought it was unbelievably interesting.
What an epiphany.
What one final
No, that's not the epiphany, Tommy. The epiphany, that was a complete tangent side story. The epiphany, Tommy, is that Ryan Tutel is David Letterman.
Oh, God bless you.
I mean, you want to talk about
God
him
bless
being
you.
manic? Listen to you,
Yes,
man.
Ryan is like he's like the goodwill version of David Letterman.
First of all, Dave Letterman is the goodwill version of David
True.
Letterman right now. Okay, and second of all, you know who I was seeing when I was watching Dave Letterman last night? Craig Johnson.
Craig Johnson.
Absolutely, Craig Johnson. Yes, Tommy, I'm with you on this. The last thing on this, okay, and then we will talk some sports at some point today. The third one, I didn't get into it, but, it automatically kicks you into the next one on the Netflix thing. It says it's starting in like 5 seconds or whatever you have there. Did you see who the next one is?
No.
Okay. Now, this is where I have an issue. The name of the show is My Next Guest Needs No Introduction, and part of the fun of it is many of the people in the audience don't, in fact, know who it is that's coming out to interview with David Letterman. The first season, it's Barack Obama and George Clooney.
Pretty good
Truly,
start.
You need no introduction, okay? Kanye West, Ellen DeGeneres. Yes. The third one is Tiffany something, and I forget what her last name is. I completely own this as on me, but I do need an introduction. I got no idea who this person is when she walks out, and I must say that the applause was not tepid in terms of people liking or not liking her. It was like 80% of the audience knew who this person was, but a full fifth of the audience, it seemed to me, didn't know who the person was, and I still don't know who she is. Her name is Tiffany, and it has something to do with a white dress that she continues to re-wear. Because I got about 2 minutes into that, and my wife was explaining this to me because I was like, well, why? Of course you would re-wear it. You bought it. It's how many times have I worn this shirt, Coulter? 150. Daily. 150 times. It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Coulter, for crying out loud. We're less than 3 hours from the opening tip of Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Golden State Warriors at home in Oakland in Roracle. Is that what they're going to do now? They're going to put that on it, Roracle. Here's what bothers me, but it's just it is so it's so insufferable when fan bases get into what are the things I can say on the radio here? Macho contests about which fan base is more rabid about their team. It's just enough, okay? Toronto was great, and I said it after Game 1. That was the loudest, especially over a full game's duration, that I've ever heard a basketball stadium ever. I would also say that Oracle Arena has been one of the absolute stars, and especially people, take it for granted now because Golden State's 5 years into 5 consecutive finals. The Golden State Warriors were squadouche for 4 decades. I mean, they're nothing and no one and stunk over and over again. And so when that fan base finally got theirs, they went crazy, and they've stayed crazy, and I give them credit because I like that in a fan base. What I don't like is who's tougher? Well, now we're going to do the Jurassic Park. Well, we're going to re-moniker ourselves, rebrand ourselves Roracle and this and so forth, back and forth. Just enough. Enough with that. Go to the game. Spend your $8,000 to go to the game and scream your head off. Have a nice time with it. Doesn't matter that it's back in Oakland.
It has been fascinating to watch the Silicon Valley boom and then reboom go hand in hand with the boom of the Warriors, right? Because we talked about this earlier in the playoffs. There's distinct identities to a lot of the fan bases that remained in the playoffs this year, because it was a good playoff field in terms of maybe the non-traditional and or non-big market fan bases. I mean, he had Milwaukee and Portland and Denver all playing. You know,
the non-big market fan bases are always better than the
almost
big market
always, right.
fan bases. It's just they don't have as many eyeballs
Right.
on television.
But that's what I'm saying about the Warriors. It's so interesting that when you look at the crowd, you see Silicon Valley. You know what the tickets cost. But you also see just a bunch of swanky, upper-class folks watching some hoops.
I mean, that is the reality at any playoff and finals game, particularly. I mean, anywhere. I understand what you're saying. I mean, it's just
interesting that they have such like that the economic booming in that area has gone hand in hand with the most appealing, like a team that would garner bandwagon fans more than any other team in a long time, then gets the bandwagon fans that also happen to, have 4 commas in their paychecks.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think it's great for the Bay Area. It's gonna be fascinating to see what happens when they move too, from Oakland to San Fran.
I am interested to know. I mean, it will be a different vibe. It's easy to get to Oracle Arena. It's on the BART, and I don't know where the new stadium is. It may well. I'm sure it's on some city transit line as well, but it's also right along. I don't know that it's I-5, but the major north-south running interstate through California and through the Bay Area borders the Coliseum, the Oakland Coliseum, and Oracle Arena, and so it's easy to get to. I just can't imagine that there's any way to get there other than public transportation if you're putting it in the city of San Francisco. And again, I don't know what the footprint of the new building and all the things that go with it are. And I wonder, point being, there's a lot of people who are not in Oakland that are going to Oakland for the games. And if it's an hour and a half to get there, that's not a big deal if you live in the Bay Area. If it's 3 hours, I don't know, might be. And I'm not saying it's not going to sell out or something like that. I'm just saying it might shift who is in fact there. That's all I'm saying.
No doubt. San Francisco, more than any other city in the country, though, worrying about the logistics of that matters not, right? Like the fact that it might be absolutely impossible to get there and park there will actually make it a hotter ticket.
You might be right.
Because of the culture that exists in San Francisco, right? I had a couple of buddies moved to San Francisco out of college, and they were both making so much money, it's ridiculous. And they were paying $3,200 a month each to split a flat.
Yeah.
Living in downtown, in the financial district. I mean, you're living in an apartment the size of mine, and it's costing you $70,000 a year to live there.
San Francisco and New York City, two highest rents in North America for sure, and globally, I think
it's like we always talk about too. I mean, the supply and demand is so profound because when you actually talk about the city, what the romantics call the city, I mean, it's 7 by 7. You're talking about 7 miles by 7 miles. The actual urban population of San Francisco is less than 1 million people.
Yeah.
It just happens to be that 795,000 people live on top of each other.
Yeah. Well, that's
you've been to San Francisco, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, San Francisco is one of the great cities.
I've been to Oracle Arena. I watched the Detroit
awesome.
Pistons, Rasheed Wallace, come in there and hammer Golden State back when they were not much to behold.
Well,
by the way, it didn't cost me $8,000 to go to that game.
Even of all the people in the world, Ryan Tutel, if it did cost $8,000 and you spent it, I wouldn't be surprised because you somehow figure out how to get it all the time.
Here's what I do: I get all the things I want with no money.
I know, it's absolutely amazing.
Cheers. You don't need money; you just need the things.
Let's talk about this game. So I think that this is the playoff game that has the least hype surrounding it of any game that we could talk about. It just in terms of breaking down what's going to happen, because it seems as if it's already a foregone conclusion that the Warriors are just going to win the first game in Oakland, right?
I don't think so.
That's what I want to get into, because I do think it's interesting. How does Toronto adjust in terms of the way that Golden State used Boogie Cousins last game? And also, where are we at with Klay Thompson?
I think the Klay Thompson question is a gigantic question. And, it's people have been saying, I've heard basically everybody today has said, if if Klay Thompson can go, he absolutely must go.
I mean, it's easy to forget that Klay Thompson got hurt in the finals last year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, Klay Thompson rolled his ankle terribly bad last
Right.
year, and then he came and played great.
Here's the thing. On a hamstring, if that's what it is, and we don't know, I guess, exactly what the deal is. I think that it's not an absolute must play if you can go. Now, if you're Klay, I'm talking about from the team's perspective. Klay Thompson, you got to think is sitting there going, if I get a green or even an orange light, I am going. Period. End of story. And if that's the type of mentality you have, then you got to go. But also, if this is the point, is it's not a rolled ankle, right? A rolled ankle.
Totally.
If you re-roll it, sure. I mean, it hurts and all that kind of stuff. A hamstring feels potentially more degenerative, to potentially easily to continue to work that in a bad direction.
Well, anybody that's rolled their ankle too, I mean, you can roll it horrendously bad. I mean, I'm sure there's dozens and dozens of people listening to the show right now that rolled their ankle horrifically bad in a game. Tape it up, lace the shoe up, and play, because it's actually better to keep the circulation. And then later on that night, it's going to explode. It's going to be so bad. But I mean, you could take a shot to decrease the inflammation pregame. You can warm it up and tape it up so tight that you can hardly hear it, and you'll be so sore after. But you can play on it. Whereas, like you're saying, like hamstring's a hamstring. If you tweak it again, you're going to be dying. And you can warm it up so well and still almost certainly have to worry about tweaking it again, too. I thought Steve Kerr after last game was hilarious because they asked him, they said, what do you think about Klay? And he said, well, I think that Klay's going to tell you that he's going to play unless Klay Thompson's dead.
Yeah, right. By the way, breaking news on this very subject. A source is saying that Golden State Warriors officials prefer that guard Klay Thompson sit out of this game. There still has been no official word on what is going to happen, but who are the officials that we're referring to? Are these bench coaches? Are these medical people? Are they higher ups in the organization, et cetera? I don't know the answer to that, but the first word that we're getting from inside Golden State's actual on the payroll people is that they would prefer him to sit out. Now we'll see if that in fact comes to fruition. Also, I mean, is it the end of the world if he's okay to go, that you give him 15 minutes? Is that crazy? Is it got to be all or nothing? It's got to be a 40-minute outing for Klay Thompson if he's going to go. I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's easier to just go, okay, you're not going, and now this is what we're going to do. I don't know. It seems to me Klay Thompson, if he's got a little bit for you, because defensively he will struggle. Defensively, this is bad news. Offensively, he moves probably more than people give him credit for, but we know what he is. This is one of the peerless shooters, that we've ever seen. And he will get to the rim from time to time, but he doesn't even move. I mean, he doesn't do anything like what Steph Curry does in terms of off-ball movement, coming off screens, all that kind of stuff to get open. He is trusting the rotation on the floor to create space that he can work in, and often he doesn't even need space because he has such an unbelievable release. So he could still be effective offensively being on the floor. I think defensively is where it's a question mark because he's such a great perimeter defender as well. Within the context of this game, though, especially if Klay Thompson's not going to play, I give Toronto better than a puncher's chance. I give him better than a Ruiz Jr.'s chance of winning this basketball game. I mean, as I said yesterday, I'm certainly picking Golden State to win it. That they're my pick, but if Toronto wins this game, it's not going to shock me. 4.5 point favorite now, Golden State. That number has moved in the direction of Toronto, and maybe that aligns more with Klay Thompson than anything else. But these have been two good games in the first two games, and Toronto's really good, and I think you have to respect that. And I think people just think that all of a sudden, at some point, Golden State's going to avalanche Toronto. Well, guess what? They did avalanche Toronto, and they won in that avalanche by 5. Because they went 20 on a 20-0 run in the middle section of that basketball game. They had to do that to win. They didn't go out there and do that and then win by 25. So I don't think they're going to sit here and all of a sudden, rest starters the last 5 minutes of the basketball game. I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, to me, this just comes down to so much about the chess match and how does each team adjust? Because Golden State won the adjustments game in the second game. They made the adjustment to limit Pascal Siakam and Kawhi Leonard getting in the lane. They made the adjustments to implement Boogie Cousins in the starting lineup and then use him in the high post and cut off of him. They just made all the right adjustments. And so what are the adjustments that the Raptors make? But also, how do they handle the atmosphere?
Yeah.
That's another distinct part, is like you said yesterday, Golden State's never not been the home team. They've never not been the team that has home court advantage in this. How does the Oracle crowd react to being, quote-unquote, the underdogs? Quote-unquote, they played 2 games of the NBA Finals already, and now they're finally getting a chance to see the Warriors. We'll see. It's going to be a raucous environment, no doubt.
Yeah. We could talk more about this a little bit later on. Let's take a quick break. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. There's a lot we can't control around here. Let's try and make Tommy happy. Get out on the right breaks, Try and do something right. Boys and girls, it's a Wednesday. It's a Wednesday. That means we got wings for you from the Desperado Sports Tavern. Give us a call, 329-1899. 329-1899, the phone number. You give us a call. We got some trivia questions for you for some wings to the Desperado, the best wings in the city of Missoula, according to you, the voting public, and even give you a chance. If you got a quick hitter, little anecdote about Dad, we'll register you for a stay-and-play getaway. How about that, over to the Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks? That's pretty great as well. Give us a call, 329-1899. Some trivia with you next.
Father's Day is fast approaching, and we know we have plenty of dads out there worth celebrating. And what's better than celebrating Father's Day with your pops by hitting the links?
No doubt. All I want to do is go golfing for Father's Day, and that's what we're going to do for one of you, right, Coulter?
We have a stay-and-play package that includes accommodations in a Lewis and Clark room at the historic
Josh.
Forks and 2 18-hole rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Course.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez all week long and call in with your best story about Dad to register.
Happy Father's Day from Tutel Nuanez.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
Alpine Touch has mastered keeping your taste buds happy by spicing up anything you throw on the grill this summer. Now, let Alpine Touch keep your mouth watering whenever you want their new sunflower shooters. Their new jumbo sunflower seeds seasoned with Alpine Touch's world-famous all-purpose seasonings and Alpine Touch sunflower shooters will be available all summer at every Osprey baseball home game. Available at retail locations around the state and online at alpinetouch.com. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
No matter how far you may go, there's always one just down the road. Town Pump, who pump it up, pump it up.
You know you need a pick-me-up, and Town Pump has just the thing. Make a quick stop at Town Pump today and grab 3 12-ounce Red Bulls for only $7. Or get any size fountain drink for only $1. Town Pump Food Stores, proud to be part of our community.
Town Pump, right down the road, pump it up, oh yeah.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Florence Coffee Co. knows you love the warm weather. With summer days here and the kiddos out of school, don't forget we serve all-natural Italian sodas. Offered in flavors like huckleberry, cherry, or raspberry, Florence Coffee's all-natural Italian sodas are the perfect summer treat. Stop by for a refreshing ice drink at any of our Flowco locations throughout western Montana and visit FlorenceCoffeeCo.com.
The best flavor under the big sky, Florence Coffee Company.
Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon. Ryan Tutel, Colton Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Sports Center. Gene Bourdette, a Montana State Hall of Famer who made his mark with the Bobcats as an athlete, coach, and administrator, passed away near his hometown of Hollister, California on Monday. He was 96. After serving in the U.S. Army Corps, Bourdette returned to Bozeman in the fall of 1946 and became Montana State's starting quarterback. He led MSU to its first ever postseason appearance in the Harbor Bowl. The following year, he quarterbacked the Bobcats to their first win over the rival Grizz in 15 years. The All-Rocky Mountain Conference selection went on to coach at his alma mater, serving as the backfields coach on MSU's 1956 national title team. In 1958, he took over as MSU athletic director, holding the position until 1970 during one of the great periods of success for Bobcats athletics. Actually passed on May 31st, rather.
Never forget guys like that. They paved the way. Montana football roster continues to evolve, entering summer workouts. Tuesday, Skyline Sports confirmed the removal of Polson product Tanner Wilson along with defensive end Randy Rodriguez, tight end Brendan Corbin, quarterback Nick Fouch, and long snapper Caleb Mitchell.
Then finally, Game 3 of the NBA Finals is tonight. Golden State is a 4.5-point home favorite despite Kevin Durant's continued absence and Klay Thompson's status still being uncertain. Opening tip is at 7 o'clock. Can be seen on ABC television and heard right here on 102.9 ESPN Radio. Ready to do a little Wing It Wednesday. Why not? It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. We are broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on Twitter at Gus Tutel, at 102.9 ESPN, and at Skyline Sports MT for all of your up-to-the-moment Big Sky Conference news and information. So, first of all, let's go to the phones right now. We welcome Josh to the show. Josh, how are you doing?
We're doing all right. You guys?
We're doing great, Josh. Now, we're gonna just do a little thing right here, okay? So help me out here. We got Coulter and Tommy and I. We have a little three-way messaging system so we can talk without talking during the show, so we can communicate with each other. Hold on. Okay. Coulter's coughing. He's got to take a quick smoke break. So my understanding is you've got a new truck, but the radio isn't functioning it or something along those lines. Is that?
I have figured that out.
Oh, you did get it figured. Well, good. I'm glad about that, and congratulations.
We are talking on Bluetooth through the truck.
Oh, excellent. So it's a Bluetooth deal. Because here's the thing. Tommy says to me on the messenger that your radio isn't working. Well, what do I care if your radio's working? I mean, I watch your radio to work. You can listen on the radio, but you're calling me on the phone. So when I say, well, what so what? I put the question mark out there. Then I get rained down with insults from Coulter and Tommy here, just shouting at me on the computer about what a dope I am for asking a question like that. But it's the Bluetooth connection that's the issue.
Yep, but we got her figured out. We're golden.
Ryan, when Josh is off the line, I'm coming at you. I'm coming at you big time.
Josh, we got a couple things today. You've called into a great one here. We got 3 questions for you. Okay. If you get 2 of them right, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. Best way in Missoula. If you get all 3, you got yourself a shirt. If you need help on any of these, Coulter is your lifeline. But also, we want to register you for a stay-and-play getaway at the Sacagawea Hotel over in Three Forks and a couple of rounds of golf. You and a friend, a loved one, a spouse, whatever it might be, an overnight over there, and all we need is a story about that. You think you can do all this stuff for us?
We can try.
All right. Well, let's
Boy,
do it.
some chicken wings would really hit the spot.
Tommy likey. Tommy want wingy.
Okay, here we go. Question number 1. To the NCAA has changed the 3-point line for Division I men's basketball starting next year. They're going to move it back. It's currently at 20 feet 9 inches. They're going to move it back to the international distance of the international three-point line. To the nearest foot, how far is the international three-point line?
Oh, man. I don't want to use my lifeline yet, so I'm going to say 22 feet, 3 inches.
Well, I only asked you to the nearest foot, not even to the nearest inch. You're actually very close to the nearest inch by 1 inch off. 22 feet is absolutely correct. It's 22, 1 inch and 3 quarters. 1 and 3 quarters
inches. Yep.
In any case, 22 feet and a foot and a quarter further than it is right now. So it's actually quite a bit further out in terms of the distance there. Very good. Question 1 in the books. Question number 2. There was a big title fight, but it wasn't supposed to be the super fight in the heavyweight division over the weekend. And Andy Ruiz Jr., an 11-1 underdog, TKO'd his opponent in the 7th round, which pauses hopes for a title fight in the heavyweight division, a super fight that would have been between the loser and Deontay Wilder, who did Andy Ruiz Jr. TKO in the 7th round on Saturday evening.
Well, that's easy. That's my name, Joshua. And Johnson, I believe, is his last name.
It is actually Joshua is his last name.
Oh, that's right. It's something Joshua. Anthony Joshua.
You got it.
Yep, you got it.
You got it.
Okay.
Anthony Joshua. And file that away, boys and girls, because Coulter's got some boxing questions for you. Even bigger fights than the Ruiz Joshua fight, if you can believe it.
I would have loved to seen Wilder and Josh go at it. That would have been a good fight, I would have thought.
Well, I think it would have been a great fight, and I'm not so sure that maybe we won't still get to see it at some point, but this was a road bump to that, maybe a significant one. By the way, Josh, congratulations. You got yourself the wings. Excellently done. Let's see if we can go 3 for 3.
Right on.
The FBI today released its 22-page findings on Bigfoot from 1970. The question, does Bigfoot exist?
And this is Sports How?
You're hired.
Often people ask that question about the show in general.
I hate to. I'm not going to use any lifelines. I'm just going to be. I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to say that they determined that for some reason it's saying in my mind that it is. Yeah, he's real. He's legit.
Well, I have no idea what the answer is. I just wanted to know what you thought. And
I think he's real. I really think there's a half man, half ape out there.
Well, let me tell you something. It's pretty tough to sit, in this room with Coulter in my eye and not believe that there is such a thing out there in the world. So very good. 3 for 3 there, Josh. Excellently done by you. You got the wings. You got the shirt. Now, let's get you registered for a trip out there to the Sacagawea Hotel. It's a Father's Day giveaway. Stay and play there at the hotel, and then rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Club. Whoa, hey, it sounds like your door alarm's working fine, too. That's good. Give us a story, a dad story, about you as a dad, about your dad, about a dad that you know. What do you got? A quick anecdote for us.
Like just maybe when I was like 14, I thought I was froggy and felt tough, and my old man reminded me that he's still in charge and threw me through my door. And I'm not talking a little plywood door. I'm talking like a 3-inch thick oak door.
Is that right? And so
yeah.
you were put in your place in no uncertain way there at the adolescent stage of life.
I was full of testosterone, and he reminded me that he's still in charge.
Were you in Montana at this time?
I was.
Joshua, it's a great story. Thank you for it.
That was also like 20-some years ago. You could actually do that.
Yeah, I mean, I would think maybe at this point, well, first of all, probably he wouldn't do it. Maybe he couldn't do it. And second of all, maybe you wouldn't put him in a position where he might even think about doing it. You know?
Now, my kid personally is 15, and he's 5'11" and 160 pounds. And we were wrestling the other day, and I hate to admit it, but he took me off my feet.
Uh-oh.
So
Uh-oh. And from one turn. This sounds like you're getting it from both directions. You're getting it from the upper generation and the lower generation here, Josh. What's going on?
I've gotten a little soft in my age.
I guess so. Hey, give your information to Tommy, and we will get you set up with all that stuff, all right?
All right, thanks, guys. Keep
Thank
up the
you.
great work.
Appreciate it, Josh.
Yep.
I mean, if the man's radio doesn't work, what problem is that of mine?
Big problem. Everybody needs to listen to you.
That's not even what I'm talking. I'm just saying he's clearly called in. He's on the phone. He made it through. And then I'm told, well, his radio's not. Well, you're not even supposed to call in with your radio on. Like, that's the point. Like, if you got your radio on, you get the feedback, the echoing that happens.
I just understood what Tommy was saying.
I never understand. Never understand anything. They're moving back to 3-point line. What's that mean? Who knows? Coulter will tell me, though, next.
At the Montana Club, our goal is to create a menu of mouth-watering food with variety to satisfy any craving. From the garden-fresh ingredients in our salads to our succulent, perfectly grilled Montana Club Angus steaks, we take pride in every detail that goes into preparing your food. Top off your meal with a premium cocktail, wine, or microbrew. Come as you are and satisfy your craving with our home-style breakfast, lunch, and dinner at the Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey folks, Ryan Tutel here with Josh from The Advocates. If you've been in a car accident and need help dealing with the insurance company, you should give The Advocates a call.
It doesn't cost anything at all to call, and I'd be happy to talk with you about your situation. You don't want to have to be dealing with contacting the insurance companies and setting up your claim. We can do that for you from start to finish. We'll take the hassle out of the process so you can just focus on getting better.
There you go, folks. If you've been injured in an accident, give Josh a call, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers, but you deserve an advocate.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever, just in time for summer. There's our exclusive Reputation, a high-mileage premium passenger tire we believe has the quietest, most comfortable ride ever. Or our exceptionally quiet and smooth all-season traction tire, the Open Range AT. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 Open Range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Still emerging from your winter hibernation and need to get your bearings straight? Cruise on down to Port of Missoula for all your spring and summer needs. Come check out their men's and women's streetwear, sunglasses, and shoes from brands like Vans, Adidas, Thrasher, Volcom, and the original Port of Missoula brand. They also have all your skating needs covered, from tune-ups to fresh-made custom boards. Port of Missoula, Missoula's original board shop since 1989, on the Hip Strip, 618 South Higgins.
Father's Day is fast approaching, and we know we have plenty of dads out there worth celebrating. And what's better than celebrating Father's Day with your pops by hitting the links?
No doubt. All I want to do is go golfing for Father's Day, and that's what we're going to do for one of you, right, Coulter?
We have a stay-and-play package that includes accommodations in a Lewis and Clark room at the historic, gorgeous Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks and 2 18-hole rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Course.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez all week long and call in with your best story about Dad to register.
Happy Father's Day from Tutel and Nuanez.
Tutel and Nuanez on 102.9 ESPN Radio for Missoula.
Rip my pants.
When Big Larry came round just to put him down, SpongeBob turned into a clown.
Just like Ryan Tutel. This is actually the wrong song. I hit play on the wrong thing.
I was sitting here going, I know that he's going to come at me with something because he's so bitter at me right now. And then this came on, and I'm just completely... Why don't you just play the one you meant to play? Play the other one.
Because I quit. I'm done. I'm just have to play out. You're on your own. We've got SpongeBob on the show today, and I'm sure Coulter's happy about this.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy, online at kurtzpolaris.com. Facebook/ESPN Missoula and SkylineSportsMT.com on the World Wide Web. Tommy said that he was now he's been threatened to quit like daily now. So it's really it used to be kind of like a monthly and then kind of a weekly, and now it's like a daily. And that's
such
okay.
millennial.
But he told me that
all his dreams are coming true, and he still wants to quit.
Yeah. So what?
Tommy, I had to get at you a little bit.
Now, you didn't say Bluetooth in the thing. You didn't say like it was a phone issue. You said he's got a new truck and his radio doesn't work. That's what you said in the thing.
Let's start with the first problem here before you think that you're going to get another one over on me. Here's where this starts. Okay. At the end of that segment, you knew full well I was talking with Josh to get his information and get him his goodies, and you went to break. You're sticking to the clock when you knew full well I needed to come on there and let you have it. So we're all laughing, Ryan. Second of all, you got me so fired up back here yesterday. The whole studio blew up. You're laughing. Becky's laughing. And now we're on here today. You're going to stick to the clock and go, well, I don't know why Tommy's so mad. And then now you're saying, well, I don't know what this radio thing has to do with me. Every time someone calls this show, if I tell you the name of the caller, you flip out. And you go, well, what are they calling about? What team do they side with? What's the point of this conversation? What's their opinion? What side are they on? Who should I throw the question to? So I'm getting tidbits. I'm getting better at getting tidbits. Hey, Josh working on getting his new radio going. So you can open with it. And now you have chosen to stop time. Throw me down under the bus and go, what do I have to do with this radio thing?
Now let's just.
What do I care if his radio works? Well, Ryan, everybody needs the radio to consume you.
What a dumpster fire you are today, Ryan.
You know, that.
It's because I told him he was like Letterman last night. His head exploded.
Gosh.
That's all he ever wanted to be was Dave.
I am so egregiously confident in my position in this particular happenstance. It's almost beyond words. The fact that you were trying to give me a tidbit, but I asked for the caller. I know why he's calling. He's calling for a Wing It Wednesday and a registration to the Sacagawea Hotel. That's what he's trying to get in here for. It's when they're calling, and I don't know why they've called that the tidbits are there. Now, I did lead with the truck tidbit, did I not? And it went very well, and it's still going well.
I mean, I guess. I don't know.
Okay.
That's for you to decide. You are the next Letterman, after all. So really, you can determine whether or not that is in fact the case, or if it
Tommy,
isn't.
who are you the next of? Art Bell?
Oh yeah, full Art Bell.
You
You're
think
a
so?
little Art Bell too.
I
Just
think
because I
Coulter.
like my tinfoil hat.
Yeah.
No, Coulter's far
but
more.
Didn't Art Bell like broadcast out of a closet and stuff?
Yeah, he built a radio station in a single wide trailer house.
Yeah, I can't do anything like that.
Well, you don't need to. You already got the radio station. What
I got
were
a
you gonna
lifetime
say?
commitment from Tommy. That's all I really need.
What were you going to say Coulter's like, Tommy?
I said he's far more like Art Bell because he is fascinated by people with like what could be described as dramatic or outlier type of ideologies or thought processes, and he can get those people to really divulge into why they feel that way. That's why Coulter's the next Art Bell.
I just spent the whole break reading about Marilyn Manson.
It's an act.
It's not an act. What do you mean?
I'm kidding.
You're the only one that can act like not yourself.
The men's college basketball three-point line is being pushed back next season over a foot. In fact, 1 foot, 4 3/4 inches in total, if you're keeping track at home. It is going to go from 21 feet, excuse me. It's going to go from 20 feet, 9 inches, what it is right now, to 22 feet, 1 3/4 inches, which is the international three-point line. It was moved back a foot 10 years ago, the 08-09 season, from 19 feet, 9 inches out to the 20 feet, 9 inches that it is now, and now it will go back further. What's the NBA three-point line, like 23.5 feet? It's like another foot or something like beyond the international three-point line. I like this, Coulter, for a couple of reasons. The first reason is a lot of kids that play, especially Division I college basketball, but just in general, their professional careers in basketball continue overseas. And they're playing the international rules of the sport. And I think this gives some of those guys just a better feel for, for that line, especially where shooting has become such a kingpin and a titan in the sport and what they do. So I think that's good. And then the other part of it is, why not? Because the shooters have become so prolific and so proficient. And, when you see it done at the professional level, it matriculates down to the youth, high school, and college levels. And you are seeing improved and better shooting out of college kids, now. And so why not move it back? And, you're a little more preparation for the international side of things. And then, a little further out, a little closer to that NBA line. So I think it's a relatively minor change, all things considered. Although I think, 15 plus inches is pretty good. 16 plus inches is a decent distance. But I like the change overall. I don't think it's bad, and I think that there could be some help to guys going on to make careers of this down the road.
I would argue that one of the watershed moments in the history of basketball, modern basketball particularly, was in, so if everybody remembers correctly, 1988 Olympics in Seoul, Korea, the USSR won the gold medal. The argument was that while the USSR is not using NBA players, they're using professional players, but these professional players have maintained their amateur status by playing for the USSR national team, and that's where the Olympic change transformed into allowing all players to play Olympics. The Dream Team comes about. 1992 and 1996 Dream Teams 1 and 2, the greatest collections of talent in the history of basketball. I mean, they beat everybody by a million, even though they were going to the casino in Monte Carlo until 4 a.m. There's the great stories of Charles Barkley and Larry Bird and Michael Jordan, just drink until the sun comes up and then going and winning the semifinals game by 50. The United States then subsequently dominated the Olympics for the next 4 Olympics. But in 2004, that was a low point for basketball, American basketball, because the United States did not win the gold medal in 2004. It was the only time since pros have been allowed to play, since NBA players have been allowed to compete, that the U.S. did not win.
Yeah, and there was a lot of taking for granted in the construction of the team. Oh, there's so much talent, it doesn't even matter, and they didn't really pay too much attention to that. A lot of guys passed on playing, and so forth and so on.
And it was also a very dark moment. Not dark. Dark's the wrong word. It was a low point in the modern history of the NBA, too. Simultaneously as the international loss, because Michael Jordan had retired. Tim Duncan had won a couple championships, but he was nowhere near the marketable face.
Stephon Marbury was like
the Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal team had already burned out. Like, they were going to be the next great team. They were for 3 years, and then they burn out. And at that moment, it was kind of like, what is the league? The league hadn't made its dress code yet. The combination of hip-hop and basketball was at full force for better and for worse. The faces of the league were guys that are very polarizing, not necessarily crossover, really appealing guys like we have now or like we had in the 90s, guys that, like Allen Iverson, who you love him or you hate him. There's not really any in-between. And
love him.
I do too. I love Allen Iverson, but there was really no in-between. After, though, that loss, so many of the principles of the international game, as well as the flooding of the NBA with international players, occurred. Yeah. That's when all of a sudden teams started looking for the European guy that they might take a flyer on in the first round. And then all of a sudden you have, because at that moment, there had hardly been any international players. There had been Drazen Petrovic, Arvydas Sabonis, but not really that many international, especially Western European or even Eastern European players. A huge influx of those, including Manu Ginobili from that Argentina team that won the gold medal, all the great Spanish guys like Pau Gasol and on down the line. But that moment had such a huge influence on the NBA that we know it today. Then what happened? They changed the rules. They got rid of hand checking. That opened up the game for so many guys that would have never had a chance. Steve Nash was drafted in the NBA in 1996. Steve Nash was an irrelevant NBA player for the first 8 years of his career because Steve Nash was too slow and small to get anywhere. When you can put a power guard on Steve Nash and you can hand check him all the way out the perimeter, he can't get loose. Well, when they changed the rules as far as hand checking, and they also became a lot more lenient with the high pick and roll, the way the guy can move while he's setting the screen, what happens? Steve Nash becomes one of only 10 guys in the history of the NBA to win back-to-back MVPs. Then they moved the three-point line back. And all of this has catered to a way more free-flowing, a lot of people would say way more reliant on three-pointers for better or worse, but a lot more free-flowing, a lot more open-spaced style of basketball. My biggest argument with college basketball right now is the fact that they've changed the rules the other way. They've made the fouls way more ticky-tacky while not making the court any bigger, and the players are not that much smaller than the players that are in the NBA. So when you watch a college basketball game, what do you see? You see moments of breathtaking athleticism with so much congestion, so much cloggage in the lane. The spacing is nowhere near what it is in the NBA. And it's unpleasant, at least for me, to watch. So I think this rule change, more than anything else, will disimprove the spacing.
Yeah. That was a very long way to get to that final conclusion. Thank you for taking us down the road. Hour 1 in the books. Hour 2. A history of the world leading to another minor rule change.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at canyonrivergolfclub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
When you need a bank to help ramp up your savings strategy, look to your local bank, Opportunity Bank of Montana. Build confidence in your financial future when you create a rainy day cushion or take care of the nest egg you already have. Opportunity Bank offers options from basic savings to money market accounts and certificates with competitive rates. There's nothing like the feeling of progress, so let's get started today. Come see us at Opportunity Bank of Montana. OpportunityBank.com. Member FDIC.
Springtime is the time to buy a new Polaris off-road vehicle. During the spring sales event, rebates go as high as $1,500 and financing is as low as 3.99%. Live your life wide open in a high-performance RZR. Tackle anything from mountains to mud holes on a legendary Sportsman ATV. Get more done with a hard-working Ranger, or take on any task or trail in a versatile Polaris General. Whatever you're looking for, now is the time to take your pick from the off-road's best-selling lineup. See Polaris.com or your Polaris dealer for rebates up to $1,500 and financing as low as 3.99% APR for 36 months during the Polaris Spring Sales event at Kurtz Polaris. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula and Highway 83 in Sealy. Recreate the right way with Kurtz Polaris online at kurtzpolaris.com. Offer valid in U.S. through 5/31/19 on new 2015 through 2019 vehicles. Subject to credit approval. Offers vary by model. See dealer for details. Always wear a helmet. Never drink and ride. Hey everybody, here with my good friend Josh from the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, if I've been in an accident, how much is it going to cost me to hire you?
Well, we take cases on a contingency fee. And what that means for you is that if you're hurt in an accident, we only get paid if you make a recovery. You'll never owe us anything out of pocket.
What about the call for a consultation?
That's not a problem. We don't charge anything for an initial consultation, so you have absolutely nothing to risk by calling us.
If you're injured in a car accident, call the Advocates, 640-4444, or online at montanaadvocates.com.
You're a big league fan. You expect big league service. At the Desperado, you get exactly that. With 35 flat screens, ice-cold brews on tap, and Missoula's #1 wings, you're free to sit back and enjoy every pitch. This summer, make the Desperado your baseball home away from home. Cool off after work, relax on the weekends, soak in some great food and drinks, and watch your team make yet another great push for October. And hey, if yours can't do it, there's plenty of other teams and fun to go around at the Desperado Sports Tavern on South Russell across from the Y.
ESPN Radio for Western Montana, KKVU HD3 Stevensville, and 102.9 FM on K275BS Missoula. and Missoula Sports Center.
Good afternoon, Ryan Tutel, Colter Nuanez, ESPN Sports Center. Gene Bourdette, a Montana State Hall of Famer who has made his mark with the Bobcats as an athlete, a coach, and an administrator, passed away near his hometown in Hollister, California on May 31st. He was 96. After serving in the U.S. Army Air Corps, Bourdette returned to Bozeman in the fall of 1946 and became Montana State's starting quarterback. He led MSU to his first ever postseason appearance in the Harbor Bowl. The following year, he was quarterback of the Bobcats to their first win in a rival over the Grizz in 15 years. The All-Rocky Mountain Conference selection went on to coach his alma mater, serving as the backfield coach on MSU's 1956 national title team. In 1958, he took over as MSU's athletic director, holding the position until 1970 during one of the great periods of success in Bobcat athletics.
Montana's football roster continued to evolve entering summer workouts. Tuesday, Skyline Sports confirmed the removal of Polson product Tanner Wilson, who was a quarterback/safety for the Grizzlies, along with defensive end Randy Rodriguez, tight end/wide receiver Brandon Corbin, cornerback Nick Fouch, and long snapper Caleb Mitchell.
And finally, Game 3 of the NBA Finals is tonight. Golden State is a 4.5-point home favorite, despite Kevin Durant's continued absence and Klay Thompson's questionable status. Opening tip between the Raptors and the Warriors is at 7 o'clock. It can be seen on ABC television and heard right here, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Changes happening, and Tommy's brain on full display musically right here and right now.
I'm just going off of your list, brother.
Did I send this one over to you? It's Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live from the Kurtz Polaris studios. Kurtz Polaris at 2904 West Broadway in Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at kurtzpolaris.com. You can find us on the World Wide Web, 1029ESPN.com. There you can listen to the stream. The stream's available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's there thanks to Opportunity Bank, your local bank, your opportunity. If you missed anything in the first hour, listen on the podcast. The podcast is available on the TuneIn Radio app and on iTunes and on Spotify. It is available thanks to the Wingate by Wyndham Hotel. Colter, before we get into some of this Grizzly football roster move stuff, I just want to take a moment here with Gene Bourdette. Now, you're a true historian of particularly Montana State athletics, Big Sky Conference in general. And when you start to go back and you talk, guys in the 20s, 30s, 40s, some the things have changed so much in sports that you go, okay, well, what do what do the records mean, or how good a player was this guy or that gal, and so forth and so on. And obviously, over time, you just lose some of that reference stuff. But for Mr. Bourdette, all of to go from player to coach, national championship team to athletic director, spanning, you're talking about 25, 30 years, at MSU in some capacity, really, really significant. Right up until, when you're at 1970, you are breaking into the modern age of athletics and collegiate athletics, and certainly still very different. We're almost 50 years from that to what it is today, but significant nonetheless, and certainly worth marking the occasion of his passing, 96 years old.
No doubt, and that was all just to get all that in the Sports Center. Gene Bourdette grew up in right outside of Oakland. He worked in the shipyards in Oakland, following a brief period at Salinas Junior College. Then he entered the service, and he was in 1943, and that his pilot training was what originally brought him to Bozeman. There used to be a branch of the U.S. Army that had pilot training based in Bozeman. So he was part of the U.S. Army Air Corps 302nd Transport Wing, and he later volunteered for the Army's 5th Division in the 11th Infantry. He served under General George Patton in World War II. Following his service, He then returned to Bozeman and married his wife, who ended up being his wife for 62 years, and he enrolled at Montana State. NCAA clock back then worked a little bit differently. Right. So even though he played a little junior college ball and then was in the service, his clock paused, and he was able to get back. So he was the starting quarterback for the 1946 Bobcats, the first team to ever earn a postseason berth. They played in the Harbor Bowl that season. The next year, they beat the Grizzlies for the first time in 15 years. People got to remember back then, the Grizzlies were a Division II team, while Montana State was an NAIA team at the time. At the time, it was actually Montana State College, and this was Montana State University.
This was Montana University.
I think it was Montana State University. Was the University of Montana.
Okay, right.
And Montana State College was in Bozeman.
Gotcha.
And he was an All-Rocky Mountain selection in 1947. And then, like you said, he was a high school coach who then became a college coach. He was on Tony Storty's staff 1956 as the backfield coach when Montana State won their first national championship. In 1958, Storty resigned from his position as the head coach and athletics director, and Bordette assumed that role. And he was the guy who hired both Jim Sweeney and Tom Perrick, who were the guys who laid the foundation for then what became Sonny Holland's reign, which flipped the rivalry on its head. And that's when both the schools became peer members as charter members of the Big Sky Conference. The Bobcats then went from the school that was dominated so thoroughly for most of the first 50 years of the rivalry to the school that then dominated the rivalry during the Jim Sweeney, Tom Perrick, and Sonny Holland days. And then, as we know, back then into the 80s, then the Grizz reassumed and had the streak and all that. But those guys were definitely involved in the heyday, and Bordette was the athletic director during that time. In 1970, he left that post to go be the head of the Aztec Club at San Diego State. So he's basically the primary fundraiser at San Diego State for 10 years, and then he was appointed the athletic director at SDSU in 1980, and he did that all the way until 1985. So a life well lived, and I always like acknowledging guys like this because we wouldn't have what we have now without guys that came before us. And I spent my afternoon going and seeing a couple people, but I had lunch down at Warden's Market. I read a great piece about D-Day while I was sitting at Warden's, and tomorrow, the 75th anniversary of D-Day.
Right. Yep.
And it's just amazing to think that was a part of life back then. And there's no, I mean, it seems overdone and almost cliche sometimes, but also I think it's worth never forgetting because we would never be sitting in these seats making a living doing a talk radio show if it wasn't for the bravery of the men that came before us. Gene Bordette and many, many, many others included. We had Memorial Day last week, and I mean, there was so many people that were involved in athletics in Montana that had to sacrifice. I mean, guys like Cy Gatton. He was an outstanding Bobcat. He died in the war. Gatton Field, which preceded Reno H. Sales Stadium, which preceded Bobcat Stadium, is named after Cy Gatton. I mean, Dornblaser. Everybody knows Dornblaser Field. Paul Dornblaser was also, a veteran and someone that fought in the war. And just worth acknowledging those who came before us. And rest in peace, Gene Bordette, 96 years. Great, a life well lived.
Well, I wanted to say something about this tomorrow, and maybe we will, but this is certainly an apropos time given the conversation. But as you mentioned, the 75th anniversary of D-Day tomorrow, June 6th, 1944, D-Day. And I don't know if you've been following this, but a contingent of folks from the Smoke Jumper Center here in Missoula are going to be part of a group that is going to reenact the jump. They are flying. They're in England now, going to fly over the channel and parachute into France as a commemoration of D-Day and of the events of that day. And in fact, Keith Wolferman, family friend of ours, friend of the show as well, is one of the guys jumping. And there's a huge group from Missoula who will be joining others there, but a spectacular display, and I would think a very moving one to tie in. I mean, we understand, hopefully we understand as well as we can now, 75 years removed, what took place both on that day, what that represented, and what the war was in general. Colter, that me personally, the Second World War has become something of more even than a hobby to me. I spend quite a lot of time reading and researching the events broadly on that, but specifically for D-Day, there were a number of moments like this, but certainly that was one where if the Allies don't come through there, the world is turned in a horrific direction, and probably irreversibly. And so the number of people who died in that invasion, significant. We seen certainly some of the movies and things like that, and understand a bit about what in fact took place there. But to think about guys like Jean Bordet and all of those men and many women who served also in various capacities, even in the 40s, and especially on the home front. I mean, many of the women took into factory work because all the guys were out. It's an unbelievable space of time, and I think rightfully called the greatest generation. It's tremendous stuff, and certainly on Memorial Day and now for this, poignant moments, and we should take the time to pay our respects to those folks and to the people to this day continue to serve in our armed forces for these purposes, and that's I don't know. It's been impactful to me personally. In my life, and I think that when a guy like this who has that crossover of a life of athletics, especially in Montana State and through this area, definitely worth pointing out.
Miss Montana, the C-47 plane,
yes,
originally flew over Normandy, will fly again.
That's right. They went and fixed the thing all up, and they got it over there.
Tomorrow, 2 paratroopers who originally jumped in D-Day, one's 96, one's 97, will jump again.
Amazing.
Imagine what that is going to feel like for those guys.
I can't. I mean, I really that is something else. That is something else. Okay. Well, so we go on to the flippancy of our day-to-day lives.
Yes, we should.
Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio, broadcasting live in Western Montana on ESPN, across the state on SWX Montana Television. Hi, how are you? Thanks for being with us. And
I guess they've already jumped because of the time difference.
Oh, did they jump? Oh, right.
Because they did it in the wee hours of the morning.
Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we'll
shout out to my
I'm sure
roommate.
There's going to be footage of all
in.
that stuff, and I'm sure we'll be seeing pictures of it here coming soon. Colter, you talked in the Sports Center, and I know that you wanted to talk a little about some of the change. A couple of guys coming in, and a number of guys going out of the University of Montana football team, the roster, which is always in a state of flux, especially in this time of year. It's just one of the realities of it. But some guys coming, some guys going. What do you got for us on this?
First of all, crazy piece of news today.
Okay.
Caleb Hill, former University of Junior College guy, was expected to compete with Reese Phillips to replace Grady Gustafson. Ends up being Reese Phillips' job before he got hurt, and then ended up being Gress Jensen's job, and Caleb Hill never really got a chance to play quarterback. But people forget, Caleb Hill was one of the top left-handed pitching prospects in the country coming out of high school. Well, today he was drafted in the 36th round by the Boston Red Sox.
Wow, how about that?
So Caleb Hill, his athletic career will continue.
Left-handed pitcher. I'll tell you what, I don't know what he's got for an arm. I'm sure it's a good one. He's a giant man standing on that mound, though. I mean,
he looks like a pitcher.
He bulked up significantly to play tight end. Now, maybe maybe that's been, moderated a bit afterwards and working in baseball. But 36th round of the Boston Red Sox, good for Caleb Hill.
Yep, no doubt. Some other roster stuff to go over. Confirmed that Tanner Wilson is no longer with the Grizzlies. He was another guy brought in to play quarterback. I always thought he should have played safety all along. He's from Polson. And they switched him to defense in the spring and then decided to part ways with the program. Other guys no longer on the Grizzly roster. Randy Rodriguez, who's a defensive end who was a contributor, played quite a bit the last couple years. Brendan Corbin, who's a wide receiver who then switched to tight end, but he never could he's a big-bodied guy who just couldn't really find a position or stay healthy. Cornerback Nick Fouch, who's the older brother of Nash Fouch, but he was playing corner during the spring. He actually got a lot of number 2 reps. And long snapper Caleb Mitchell. Those are the newest ones. And then there's a couple other guys that have been confirmed that we've kind of skirted over in the past, but I'll find my list here.
Now, let me just ask you a quick question.
Sure.
Because in the Sports Center, and this may just be semantics, but you have it says they were I'll just read it. Skyline Sports confirmed the removal of Polson cornerback Tanner Wilson and goes on down the list. But some may read into that there's an implication that they were somehow kicked off the team or that they were told that they couldn't play. And maybe in some cases that's true, but there could be, guys just left or whatever it is. We don't necessarily know the circumstances that they are no longer on the team. Is that right or wrong? Am I missing?
Well, I mean, nobody really knows what was said between Coach Houck and the rest, any of these guys, but just from knowing the way that this has worked in the past, it's basically just a meeting where here's where you stand on the team, probably a better idea for you to pursue other opportunities, or if you really want to stick around, okay, keep grinding, but you're going to be way far behind.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the times this day and age, people just don't necessarily want to stick around, especially if there's no guaranteed playing time.
Right. But I mean, it's not none of this is surrounding some particular
incident
event
or
incident or something like that happened. Right.
I mean, it's just roster evolution, and it's just kind of the way it is, especially when you oversign. And Montana oversigned in the spring, and then they brought in 4 transfers now as well. So, when you sign a bunch of guys and you only have a limited amount of seniors and roster spots, the other 2 guys that we had previously talked about were Wheeler Harris, who was the transfer quarterback from Alabama. He entered the transfer portal, so that was one that we reported on a little earlier on. And then Jalen Hemphill, who's the twin brother of Jaden Hemphill. Jaden Hemphill played a lot during the spring. Jalen Hemphill did not. I don't know if he actually ever really made his way into any sort of live practices. So, and then the other guys that have previously been reported that are no longer on the roster from last year, Ray Green, who was a highly recruited running back from the West Coast. He's now at Central Washington University. Jeremy Calhoun does have a year of eligibility left if anybody wants to take a flyer on him, because he was actually able to redshirt last year because of both his injuries and
not playing in the last couple of games.
Seamus Hennessy was a walk-on quarterback from Corvallis. He's no longer with the team. Jake Olson from Great Falls, he's a tight end. Building senior defensive end, Devin Maua. Offensive lineman Cody Meyer and Peyton Stoner, and kicker Tim Semenza, who decided to go his final year and he got himself a big-time investment banking job, and best of luck to him.
Very good. Thank you, Coulter. Let's move into a couple of NFL things. Tutel Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. Odell Beckham was talking today, and usually when Odell Beckham talks, it can go one of 2 ways, good or bad. I like this. This is fine with me. I got no problem with this, but tell me, Coulter, the following. Here's the quote. Okay, he was talking to reporters today. Quote, "I'm going to have to get adjusted to the speed because he's got an arm," referring to Baker Mayfield. He's throwing that ball hard, so just catching it from him on the first day, it was like, wow, this is completely different. It just takes time. Again, we play in September, so that's a good thing, end quote. Is that just straight fire at Eli Manning? Is that just shots across the bow at Eli Manning?
Yep. And it's great because it's about Baker Mayfield, who's fired more shots in his first year in the league than anybody ever.
Let me ask you this. Johnny Manziel comes in.
Yep.
And has all the attitude in the world.
Yep.
Which is not, and it is accompanied, I still think, accompanied by great talent, but not accompanied by work ethic or the requisite care that you need to be successful in the NFL. Baker Mayfield comes in, looks like the real deal.
Certainly.
To me, he and Johnny Manziel are not that different in terms of just the surface type that you get. And it does matter how good you are.
100%.
But I love Baker Mayfield. And by the way, I don't necessarily hate Johnny Manziel. I'm not even necessarily implying that. But it seems like sometimes there's such a fine line where you're like, get this guy out of here, this, arrogant so-and-so, this jerk, whatever it is. And then this guy comes in, you're like, look at the swagger on this kid. And so I feel at times hypocritical, dichotomous about this stuff, because on one hand I sit here and I go, yeah, give me all that. You got it. On the other hand, I'm like, no, move on down the line. So what are your feelings on Baker? and specifically on his sort of personality and the way he goes about it.
I think there's several differences here. First and foremost, Baker Mayfield's just way better than Johnny Manziel.
Well,
he's way better. He's way better than Johnny Manziel. He's just way better. He can make all the throws. He's got an elite arm. He's got an elite presence. He's got elite decision making. I mean, Baker Mayfield is the modern day gunslinger, and Baker Mayfield and Patrick Mahomes are the two closest things we've seen to Brett Favre since Brett Favre. And I think Baker Mayfield, I said this on this show. I said my biggest question mark for Baker Mayfield is, will his leadership style translate to the NFL? I think that the reason it did and Johnny Manziel's didn't is Johnny Manziel's personality is so much about wearing your hat backwards and throwing the ball from the very top of Kyle Field through the basketball hoop in the end zone. And it's like, it's fun, but it's also sort of, it's not serious. Baker Mayfield, there's no doubt that he's serious. And I think the other thing, I think you can get away with so much more when if you talk the talk, you got to be able to walk the walk. And if you can walk the walk, especially in this day's NFL with the way that guys like Odell Beckham react to leadership, I mean, I expect Odell Beckham to have an enormous year because Odell Beckham is already a very volatile, fiery guy. But if you give him someone who can empower him from a personality standpoint, who's not, aw shucks, Eli Manning, who's the guy who's throwing you the touchdown pass and then sprinting down there and chest bumping you like Baker Mayfield's going to do. I just think it's going to empower him so much. But I just
Any
think
chance it goes the other way?
I mean, maybe because anything can go anyway with Odell Beckham, especially with Jarvis Landry right next to him.
And the one thing that Eli Manning is never going to be is the spark to light the fire, right?
Totally.
And so, on one hand, if you got a guy who's fiery who pushes you, then that could be great. And I agree with you. Like I see, that I think.
Well, and also so much of it's just about how serious do you take the whole thing too, because again, Baker Mayfield got in a little bit of trouble when he's in Oklahoma, but like getting a minor in possession when you're under 21 because you were at a bar. I mean, I don't know who wasn't, right? Whereas Johnny Manziel was like Johnny Manziel was partying at a concerning level when he got pro money. You know what I mean?
No.
Baker Mayfield has had there has not been a single picture of Baker Mayfield doing anything besides walking in and out of the Browns training facility, watching film, training, throwing. That's it. He's dedicated to the game. I think that's the difference too, is you can talk a whole bunch of smack and be sort of the instigator like both of these guys were. And if you're putting in the work, people listen to you. If you're not putting in the work, people are like, shut up.
That's exactly right. And I think that's the thing that it seems evident because of, first of all, I don't think you play as well as Baker played if you're not out there doing the thing. Like if you're not putting the work in. But I also thought, when you come in and you have a lot of, especially if you're, a first round, to say nothing of the number one overall pick as a quarterback, and you come in with some very high level of confidence, which Baker clearly has, are there some veterans who are going to sit there and go, yeah, you carry this for me. Okay, you take it easy there, fella. And you know what? I think there was some of that in Cleveland. But here's the other thing that works in Baker Mayfield's favor. This is an incredibly young team at this point.
Totally, it definitely does.
I mean,
their
best players are third-year guys,
are not that much older than Baker Mayfield.
Exactly. So it's especially the retirement of Joe Thomas. I mean, he's the one guy, and he seems like he wasn't there. He didn't play last year, but he was like. He was vocal about his backing of Baker Mayfield, and that's significant because Joe Thomas is like the one guy that is a former Browns player that could hold some sway still with that organization. Him and Jim Brown.
So much of Johnny Manziel, too, you could tell that he was using the shtick to mask his immaturity and to mask his insecurities. I don't think Baker Mayfield even has an insecurity.
Oh, no.
You can also,
he could maybe use one.
Maybe, but you can also tell that Baker Mayfield is wicked smart because he doesn't have the same leadership style he did in college. He has the same confidence in his leadership style. But he transitioned from being big man on campus who sticks the flag in the middle of the field and, gives the finger to the sideline to a guy that has united a locker room. I mean, they were so confident in Baker Mayfield as a leader that they finally cut ties with whatever the dysfunctional relationship it was with Hugh Jackson. And it was night and day, boom, they're rolling. And then all of a sudden they're a competitive NFL team instead of a 1-31 team like they were under Hugh Jackson.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's going to be for Cleveland, the expectations are disappointing for Cleveland to me. Because they're so high right now, because they've never really had expectations in recent history anyway, that it's almost at a tie at best scenario. Like, there's a lot of ways that they fail to meet the expectations they have because those expectations are so high. And then all of a sudden, is a 9-win season in Cleveland a disappointment? Yeah, it is this season. It's never been a disappointment ever. It's been glorious if they were above 500. That is where they're at right now. I mean, you got to get to 10 and playoffs in Cleveland. That's not like the hope. That's the expectation. If you don't get there, it is a disappointment. And that's a lot to lay on a very young group of guys, a brand new head coach, and the whole program there. But it's better than going, well, you think we can get a win this year? Because that's what it has been. So, all right. Stu Tell Nuanez, 102.9 ESPN Radio. By the way, speaking of Cincinnati, I know that we were speaking about Cleveland, but Hugh Jackson went to Cincinnati. Then Marvin Lewis out in Cincinnati. You know where Marvin Lewis landed? Did you see that? I
did see him. I can't remember where. Tell me.
Arizona State with Herman Edwards. Got on the staff and just going NFL AZ for the Sun Devils. Can't wait, dude. I love Arizona State. I want to see them rolling. Pac-12.
Never will.
Oh, come
They'll
on.
never roll.
Why?
Arizona State will never roll.
You think because anybody that goes there to play football has priorities that
Dad's
are
story
not on the priorities are not on football. That's why you say that.
I do. Too many distractions.
We'll talk more about that. Okay.
More worried about the post-game beer pong.
Here's the deal. We are sending somebody over to Three Forks, to the Sacagawea Hotel and the Headwaters Golf Club for a stay and play for two for Father's Day. We've been soliciting your Father's Day story, not even Father's Day story, but your best father's stories, your dad's stories, anecdotes, so forth. Joshua talking about how he replaced a door at once upon a time as an adolescent kid when he got a little above his raisins, as Craig Johnson would say in front of his dad. So let's go to the phones now, and let's hear another story with Marley on the phone. Marley, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing great, Marley. I understand you got a story about Dad for us. Let's hear. What do you got?
I just love how my dad steps in to coach all my teams, and every Wednesday we always listen to your show.
Oh, that's great. Now, Marley, what's going on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? What's going on there?
Baseball.
Oh, okay. Well, that's acceptable.
Got more important.
Yeah, if you're playing, that's better than listening. Good for you, Marley. How old are you?
I'm 10.
And so, what level of baseball? You're in Little League right now, playing baseball.
Yeah.
And how long has your dad been your coach?
Pretty much since I started.
You know something? My dad was my coach too when I was a youngster, when I was your age, primarily in basketball, and it was the best relative to my competition that I ever was at basketball. And I give him a lot of credit. Great coaching job, helping me along. It really fell off later in life for me. So hopefully your dad can stick with you. Well, Marley, thank you for the call. Give your information to Tommy. You're gonna probably have to Uber over to Three Forks if you win it, because I don't know that you can drive yet.
But her dad can drive her.
Well, of course, if she takes her dad.
I'll be going with Dad.
Okay. Okay. Are you golfing yet, Marley? Do you get out there and hit the thing around?
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. That's a good one. Well, we appreciate the call. You are in the books. Okay? Very well done.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet. How about that?
Love it.
Marley shouting us out on a Wednesday.
Gotta love it.
Appreciate that very much. All right. Quick break. Come back. Do a Wing It Wednesday, shall we? Coulter's got a bunch of trivia for you. You're going to love this. 329-1899, the phone number. 329-1899, the phone number. You want a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. Best wings in the city of Missoula. We'll give them away if you get a couple questions right. Next.
Canyon River Golf Club is a must for any golfer in western Montana. Tucked away in a spectacular setting along the Clark Fork River in East Missoula, Canyon River offers one of Montana's best championship golf experiences. And Canyon River is happy to announce their new fleet of golf carts, which include the Shark Experience, an interactive GPS giving dynamic distances and touchscreen interaction to help you play your best. Plus, with Bluetooth, radio, and surround sound, you can enjoy yourself between holes too. Book online at CanyonRiverGolfClub.com. Missoula's best golf, Canyon River.
More bedrooms, a big yard, better commute. Whatever your reason to buy a new home, it's the right reason. In a tough housing market, the smartest thing you can do is pre-qualify for a loan before you start looking. Farmers State Bank makes it easier than ever to start the loan process with online checklists, forms, and calculators. Your dream home is out there. Get started today at farmersebank.com. Farmers State Bank, an equal housing lender and member FDIC.
This is Mike Nugent with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services. Berkshire Hathaway provides Western Montana with full-time real estate professionals for you whenever you need us. Our reputation as the state's most knowledgeable and available real estate group has helped build unmatched trust in the Garden City and statewide. If you have been thinking of making a real estate move in the short or long term, give me a call. No pressure, no expectations. Just professional opinions and service at whatever pace you are comfortable with. Give me, Mike Nugent, a call today, 531-1802. And remember, every question is good to ask.
Hey there, Coulter Nuanez from Tutel Nuanez 1029 ESPN Missoula here with Tom from Aspen Sound. Tom got me a great deal on an automatic car starter this winter. Now it's summer. What sort of stuff you guys got going on down there, Tom?
Well, Coulter, coming into the summertime, we're picking up on the window tinting front. So if you need your windows tinted, give us a call. We'll get you scheduled up. Boats and ATVs are starting to come in full swing, and we're also starting to see the hot rods come out to play. Anything audio related, let us know. We'll get you taken care of.
Feel the music at Aspen Sound.
Hi, boys and girls. Ryan Tutel
and Coulter Nuanez
from Tutel Nuanez on 1029 ESPN Radio, from your very favorite Tutel Nuanez podcast, and now officially Gracious Mercy on television statewide.
That's right. We've been doing a radio show and a podcast since August of 2017, and now it's time for us to expand our reach into statewide television on SWX.
We're on SWX every weekday from 4 to 6 live on your televisions. It's available on channel 199 on Spectrum Cable or on 23.3 on your antenna television. And you can download the Watch SWX app and get us that way on your phones and devices as well.
And of course, we'll still be right here, 1029 ESPN Radio from Missoula and the Bitterroot Valley. And as always, you can find the podcast, the live stream, and everything else you need, 1029ESPN.com.
Coulter, do you think that we're spreading ourselves too thin? Are we going to saturate these people and they're just going to start hating us, the inevitable backlash of the great heights to which we have now attained?
No chance. Tutel Nuanez, Montana's only statewide sports talk show.
ESPN Missoula Sports Center.
Hi, how you doing? I'm going to assume good. I hope you're well. We are Tutel Nuanez. Here's your sports center. Gene Bourdette, a Montana State Hall of Famer who made his mark with the Bobcats as an athlete, coach, and administrator, passed away near his hometown of Hollister, California on May 31st. He was 96. After serving in the U.S. Army Air Corps in the Second World War, Bourdette returned to Bozeman in the fall of 1946 and became Montana State's starting quarterback. He led MSU to its first ever postseason appearance in the Harbor Bowl. The following year, he quarterbacked the Bobcats to their first win over the rival Grizz in 15 years. The All-Rocky Mountain Conference selection, went on to coach his alma mater, serving as the backfields coach on MSU's 1956 national title team. In 1958, he took over as MSU's athletic director, holding the position until 1970 during one of the great periods of success for Bobcat athletics.
Montana's football roster continues to evolve entering summer workouts. Tuesday, Skyline Sports confirmed that Polson product Tanner Wilson, along with defensive end Ryan Rodriguez, tight end Brendan Corbin, quarterback Nick Fouch, and long snapper Caleb Mitchell, all no longer on the Grizz football roster.
And finally, Game 3 of the NBA Finals is tonight. Golden State is a 4.5-point home favorite, despite Kevin Durant's continued absence and Klay Thompson's questionable status. Opening tip between the Raptors and Warriors is at 7 o'clock. Available on ABC television and right here on 1029 ESPN Radio.
Ken.
Still no update beyond officials not wanting. Reportedly, Golden State officials do not want Klay Thompson to play tonight. But his status is still, if you could call it, a game time decision, whether he will actually suit up and go. Is that something that you have to make official in the NBA at all? You just show up, and if they, they
yeah, no,
blow the
injury
whistle.
reports are a lot different. This is something that my brother and I discuss a lot because.
Should we save this for the last segment?
Just quickly.
Okay.
I thought that Todd Gurley was hurt, and that's why he faded down the stretch for the Rams.
Yeah.
They never put him on the injury report. If that was to actually come out that Todd Gurley was hurt and not on the injury report, it's a major infraction. Yeah. It's even more of a major infraction, though, if you just decline to put guys – like if you false report injuries. Especially – I'm trying to think of an example of a false report. Regardless – in the NBA, like if Kevin Durant tears his Achilles and then you say he's got a calf strain and you just list him as questionable every single game, that's not that big of a deal. Whereas if say Todd Gurley blows his ACL, but then you say he just has a sprained meniscus, and you make other teams prepare for him, that is a gigantic infraction. You're getting fined $1 million for that probably, but it's just not nearly as strict in the NBA.
Okay. Well, we will monitor that status, and if we have something for you before the end of the show, we'll let you know, of course, and then we'll send you right into the pregame coverage of Game 3 of the NBA Finals. But until then, let's go to the phones. We welcome in Ken to the show. Ken, how are you doing?
I'm doing fine, guys. How are you?
Great, Ken. Thanks for asking. Appreciate that. Here's the deal, my friend. We got 3 questions for you. You get your questions from Coulter now on this one. If you get 2 of them right, you got yourself a basket of wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. If you get all 3, you're going to get a shirt to go with it. If you need help, I am your lifeline. And also, if you have a dad story that you would like to contribute, well, we will be happy to register you for an overnight at the Sacagawea Hotel there in Three Forks, Montana. So you can, consider that as well as you go. But let's start with some trivia. How's that sound?
That sounds good. I've got a great dad story for you.
Perfect.
Boy, some chicken wings would really hit the spot. Tummy likey. Tummy want wingy.
All right, Coulter, take it away. What do we got here?
All right, Ken, are you much of a boxing guy?
I followed it a lot when I was younger. It's been a little while.
Perfect. These are historical boxing questions about the heyday of heavyweight boxing. All right, number 1. Who fought in the 1971 heavyweight championship fight in Madison Square Garden, billed as the fight of the century?
What year did you say?
1971, fight of the century.
The fight of the century. Was Douglas one of them?
No.
Oh. I'm thinking that's, I don't know if that's Ali or not. I wonder if that's a little before. Let's say Muhammad Ali.
You got one.
You got one.
I'm trying to think. Is that when he fought George Foreman?
Keep that name in mind, but not when he fought George Foreman.
Okay. Answer number 1, no. Question number 2. Here we go.
All right. Question number 2. Remember what you just said. Who fought in the 1974 heavyweight title fight promoted as the Rumble in the Jungle?
That was Foreman and Douglas.
Foreman and who?
I can't think. I don't know. I know.
I tell you this, Muhammad Ali was in all 3 of the questions I was going to ask you. So you tell me
it's got to be Ali.
George Foreman, and Muhammad Ali, the Rumble in the Jungle. All right, you're 1 for 2. Number 3. Who fought?
Was the answer to the first question Lennox Lewis?
It is not. Lennox Lewis is a 90s guy. Okay, 1975. The heavyweight title fight billed as the Thrilla in Manila.
Well, I wonder who Ali fought this time.
I also think you're on the mark. You're thinking of Joe Douglas, but it's not Joe Douglas. It's Joe something else.
Frazier.
Joe Frazier.
Bingo.
So 1971,
There you
the
go.
fight of the century, Muhammad Ali versus Joe Frazier. This is when Ali was still the champ. He lost. It was his first career loss. Then Muhammad Ali recaptured the title because George Foreman
had it,
beat the daylights out of Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
Then Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope George Foreman into basically making him have a heart attack in the middle of the ring, tired him out so much, and then beat him to win the title back. And then in the rematch between Joe Frazier and Muhammad Ali, this time with Frazier as the challenger, Ali whipped him in the Thrilla in Manila.
Okay. You did not get a shirt, but you do get wings, Ken, which is, really, that's the point of this whole thing. So very well done. You got yourself some wings to the Desperado Sports Tavern. Okay, we're ready for you. Let's hear your story about that. What do you got?
Okay, my father taught me to play golf. I've been golfing since I was about 12, and so he's pretty much taught me everything I know.
Okay.
And my father is one of those golfers that has no business being on a golf course at all. He can't hit the ball straight. He can't hit it far. About the only thing he can do is make a putt. Well, we're playing golf on this par 3. It's about 150 yards, and I went first and hit a beautiful shot about 15 yards from, about 15 feet from the hole. And my old man got up, and he took out his, like a 3-wood or something, because 150 yards was too far for him to hit anyway. And he hit this worm burner that raped every snake on the fairway. It only got about maybe 2 feet off the ground. And it even bounced off a tree at one time, and it hit a sprinkler pipe, and then it embedded in the side of a sand trap that wasn't quite full, shot straight up in the air, bounced on the green twice, and rolled into the freaking cup.
A nice ace for Pops, huh?
Right, and you could not make an uglier golf shot. Even Bugs Bunny couldn't hit a shot like that. It was the ugliest thing in the world.
How long ago was this, Ken?
It was about 15 years ago.
Okay. Well, Ken, listen, I've never hit a hole-in-one. I have seen some pretty ugly holes-in-one, and I guess there is no such thing. If it goes in, the thing is great, but I hear you. I mean, the dad gets up there, can't play a lick, and then just rips the thing across, hits everything, and it bounces into the hole. What are you going to do? You just got to tip your cap. Was he pumped up? Did he start shouting and hollering the whole thing?
Oh, yeah, and of course he thought, that's exactly how he had it planned out. And, they put his name in the paper and everything, but they didn't mention the assist he got from the tree limb, the sprinkler head, and the sand trap.
Absolutely not. Pure ball flight, brought it back, let that thing bite and zip back into the hole, just like you do see it on TV.
Right, with a 3-wood on a 150-yard par 3.
Ken, give your information to Tommy. Great work. Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, guys.
There you go. Just that easy. We'll take your dad's stories tomorrow as well and Friday, and we will pick a winner. Go over and play some golf at Three Forks, the Headwaters Golf Club, and also the Sacagawea Hotel overnight there. Stay and play for 2 very, very cool Father's Day giveaway like that. It's a good story. I played golf with a friend of ours, actually. And he's not a particularly good golfer. And he also over clubs hugely because he doesn't hit the ball well, and so the ball does not go that far. But he swings hard, and in the event that he makes good contact, it's see you later. And there we are on a 140-yard par 3. He's got 3-wood, if not driver, and I'm just going, what are we going to do? He's like, I can't hit this thing. Whammo! Into the parking lot, into the clubhouse. Not into the clubhouse, but hitting the clubhouse. I mean, it's over the green, over the rough, over the fence, into the cars, 120-yard par 3, hit the thing 180, 190 yards in the air, and rolled it out there 250.
Oh, my gosh. Better lucky than good.
I mean, maybe you just hit the club. That's for the distance, I don't know.
True fact.
Quick break. We'll come back. We'll talk a little bit more about basketball next.
Father's Day is fast approaching, and we know we have plenty of dads out there worth celebrating. And what's better than celebrating Father's Day with your pops by hitting the links?
No doubt. All I want to do is go golfing for Father's Day, and that's what we're going to do for one of you, right, Coulter?
We have a stay-and-play package that includes accommodations in a Lewis and Clark room at the historic, gorgeous Sacagawea Hotel in Three Forks and 2 18-hole rounds of golf at the Headwaters Golf Course.
Listen to Tutel and Nuanez all week long and call in with your best story about Dad to register.
Happy Father's Day from Tutel and Nuanez.
Les Schwab is proud to introduce two of our best tires ever just in time for summer. There's our exclusive open range AT that we believe is our quietest, smoothest, and best all-season traction tire ever. Or the Reputation, our exclusive high-mileage premium passenger tire. Get $50 off alignment when you purchase a set of 4 open range AT or Reputation tires. Book an appointment today at leschwab.com. Les Schwab Tires. Doing the right thing matters. Cannot be combined with other offers. Limited time only. See details at leschwab.com.
On Russell, across from the fairgrounds.
We ate a lot of steaks before we came up with the Montana Club's Private Reserve Cut Angus. It's as good a steak as you're going to get. Our Private Reserve Cut Angus is specially cut for us. And with our custom seasoning, it has a flavor that's absolutely incomparable. We're confident that it will satisfy the most discriminating steak customer for an unrivaled steak experience. Real Montana, real food. The Montana Club on Brooks and North Reserve, Missoula.
Hey everybody, Ryan Tutel, and I'm here with Josh of the Advocates Injury Law Firm. Josh, there's a lot of lawyers in this area. What makes you different?
At the Advocates, we primarily focus on injury cases. That gives us the experience and the knowledge to correctly evaluate your case and work with insurance companies and other attorneys so you get exactly what you deserve to make you whole again. We take really good care of our clients, and we're going to fight for every single dollar you deserve.
Call 640-4444 or online at montanaadvocates.com. There are a lot of lawyers. You deserve an advocate.
Alpine Touch makes the perfect gift this summer or any time of year. If you are traveling, bring a gift that is distinctly Montana and give your loved ones some of the best spices anywhere around. From the Alpine Touch Pick 4 Spice Pack to the All-Purpose Twin Pack to the mouth-watering sunflower shoots to Alpine Touch gift cards. Alpine Touch makes the perfect Montana present. Available at retail locations around the state or online for a limited time. Use the code ESPN10 at checkout to get 10% off any online order. Alpine Touch, Montana's special spice.
In Western Montana, we know shopping local matters, but we also know that you're going to pay more for the quality and customer service that comes with it. Well, not at Selway Armory. Selway Armory is locally owned with a staff of specialists that can answer any question. In addition to the expertise, though, Selway Armory also has a bigger selection and, are you ready, lower prices than the box stores. When you're in the market for firearms and accessories, save money with the experts at Selway Armory. Selway Armory, 2825 Stockyard Road, Unit E6, and online at selwayarmory.com.
Tutel and Nuanez. Listen to the podcast on the TuneIn Radio app or on iTunes. 1029ESPN.com.
Hey, how's it? Tutel Nuanez, 1029 ESPN Radio, broadcasting from Church Polaris Radio, Church Polaris, 2904 West Broadway, Missoula, Highway 83 in Sealy. Online at chrispolaris.com. Turn us on YouTube. Watch Coulter doing calisthenics, stretching his back out. Great television. We're also on SWX Montana TV. Hi. Hope you enjoyed that little look. If you'd like to call, 329-1899, the phone number. All guests join us via the Range Brothers RV phone line. And if you would like to listen at another time, well, we've got you covered on the podcast. Podcast available on the TuneIn Radio app, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean. It is there thanks to Wingate by Wyndham Hotels. Go give it a listen, rate, review. Check it out. Coulter.
Hey, Gus.
You all right?
Back's hurting a little bit, but we're good.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry I had to put you in your place there in the break, but sometimes just need to be reminded. Adrian Wojnarowski is the one who is reporting this on Klay Thompson. He says,
imagine that.
Quote, reporting with at Ramona Shelburne, Golden State officials prefer Klay Thompson to sit out Game 3 to protect his sore hamstring for the rest of the NBA Finals, but Thompson has continued to lobby them on playing tonight. Decision looms prior to tip. So there you go. It's kind of what we had expected in terms of Klay Thompson's take on this. He wants to be out there, which, I mean, wanting to be out there is no surprise, but he is lobbying to do everything he can to go out there and be on the floor. Thinks he's okay. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know. I don't know that I've ever pulled a hamstring. I don't know what it feels like. I don't know. I'm very strong, Coulter.
You are very strong. You also can't move fast enough.
Right. That's.
When's the last time you fully sprinted? Fully as fast as you could run?
I don't know.
I would say it's more than 15 years.
No.
Lacrosse stick in your hand.
No. Fully sprinting. Look, any 80-year-old person can fully sprint as fast as they can run, and it might be them walking through the grocery store. That might be it. So I have fully sprinted as fast as I can go on a couple occasions, chasing kids down out of intersections, that kind of thing where you think they're going to walk into the street and you got to get out there and get a quick hop on it. But just because I'm running as fast as I can does not mean I'm running fast.
I just want to know when the last time you engaged your hamstrings and quads to their full capacity.
I am very healthy.
You are.
Sure health.
You are.
It's because I don't do foolish things like that. But the point is my understanding is you tweak your quad or your hamstring, you tear it, there's various grades and to this thing. I don't know what they are. I don't know how they feel like, and I don't know how they degenerate. And I don't know what playing with it is like compared to not or whatever.
Well, I'll tell you this. The hamstring is the most tenuous of the ligaments and the one that you can tweak the most easily. You can compensate and overcompensate for almost every other muscle in your leg. Is it a ligament?
It's a muscle.
Muscle, yeah. The hamstring is a muscle, yes. You can overcompensate and there's a lot lower chance of re-injuring a tweaked quad, calf, groin than a hamstring.
Why?
Because it's impossible to do any sort of explosive movement without engaging your hamstring.
Well, I disagree.
It's all just about the size of the muscle. I mean, the hamstring is the biggest muscle in the leg.
Yeah.
I tore my hamstring completely off the bone when I was 22. Had to walk with a cane for 4 months. Felt like you right now, currently, in fact.
Yeah. It's a great accoutrement, though. Nice conversation piece.
I had at that moment in my life, I had torn the retina in my right eye and torn my hamstring, so I had a patch and a cane.
A real pirate.
I'm just killing it.
All right. Well, yeah, I don't know, and I don't know. Again, because of the vagueness of the rules concerning injuries and injury reporting in the NBA, we don't even know what the extent of this is for Klay Thompson. We don't know. Obviously
it looked worse than they were letting on because he was at full extension, no bend, plus full ice pack at the end of the last game, and he did not reemerge to come to the bench, which means that they needed to keep it at an angle, which to me indicates a pretty severe hamstring pull.
No, I see. I don't buy the last bit of that. It may well be a severe hamstring pull, but him not coming back out or whatever, it doesn't mean anything to me. He could have been back there just saying, "No, I don't want to go back out there" or whatever. I don't know what all the reasons might be. I'm not going to speculate on what's going on, but what I will say is they're always going to underreport this stuff, aka calf strain, for KD, but it's clearly not so bad that it's just a no, right? It's not just a straight scratch, especially if Klay thinks.
But right, but you're always going to say it's not a straight scratch because you want them to prepare for Klay.
But if Klay is lobbying too, he knows that there's a chance that he can go, that he's physically the way he feels that he thinks he can go out there and do it. So, is he going to play? Yes or no? What do you think?
I say no.
I say no too.
2 minutes. Revisiting the news we talked about on the beginning of the second hour. I was just thinking about this.
Yes.
Caleb Hill, former University of Montana football player, was just drafted in the Major League Baseball draft.
36th round?
On the ticker, it says Caleb Hill, University of Montana.
Okay.
I would be willing to bet that is the first time that has ever appeared.
A University of Montana?
Because Montana has not had baseball, I think, since the 50s, maybe ever. I'm not really actually sure when University of Montana ever had baseball besides club baseball.
Yeah.
And so it's just interesting that A junior college transfer quarterback from Texas is the first individual to ever have University of Montana appear on the Major League Baseball draft.
It has to have happened because
maybe.
Here's why. Is it like 1.8 million people get drafted each year into the Major League Baseball's draft? So if you just throw the dart out there, guaranteed. I'll bet Seth Bodner's going to get drafted next year in this thing. You know, he's a great baseball player, right back there.
I also think that Caleb Hill is an intriguing prospect because not only, like you said, he's big and strong, he's left-handed, but also he has not been playing baseball for 4 years, which from a pitcher's perspective, if he can re-hone in his mechanics, could be a great thing because he could have physical maturity of a 22 or 23-year-old with the strength and everything, the core strength, the leg strength, and he doesn't have a worn-out arm. Yeah. I mean, that's a great pickup for like a project guy, right? Just throw him in the rookie league and say, hey, let's see if you got it. Still, if you don't, no risk, but whatever.
Boys and girls, wonderful show to be with you. Thanks for spending some time with us. We send you out to Rorical. Game 3 of the NBA Finals. Raptors-Warriors. Pre-game starts right now.
Poker face,